friends and foes. Welcome to Brushwork Podcast. My name is Stephanie Scott, and today I've got 5 art exercises to quickly improve your painting skills. I've gone to so many art classes. I've gone to residencies. I got a BFA from Cornish College of the Arts. And these 5 painting exercises have really transformed the way I paint. They've honed my artistic eye, and they've helped me create faster and better. And I thought, today's a good day to share them with you so you can improve your skills. Some of these exercises are focused on your technical skills like color theory and composition, and some of them are going to be based on just training your artistic eye and seeing the world for what is actually happening around color and temperature and light and tone and all those good things. The list literally goes on. I have done hundreds and hundreds of different kinds of art exercises, and this list I've got for you today are the ones that I've made the most difference in the shortest amount of time. They are things that I go to still, even though I've been painting professionally for 10 years and as an artist for 15, actually longer, 20. And these techniques and these exercises, they're things you can repeat. They all take under an hour. A couple of them take only a few minutes, and there's something you can come back to as a warm-up. You can come back to them as ways to get your creativity flowing. You can use them for working in workshops. You can spread them to your friends. They're really great, and I find myself coming back to these 5 over and over again. So shall we get into them? Each of these exercises should take you between 5 minutes and an hour. I would really encourage you not to spend more time than is recommended, because it'll keep you succinct, it'll keep you in the moment, and it'll stop you from turning these exercises into projects. You know what I mean? With each exercise, I'm going to give you instructions on how to do it, what you'll need to do it, how long before you're going to notice improvements, and results that I have personally felt when doing them myself. So do you want to get better at making art? Let's dive in. Number 1, transcriptions. A transcription is the most bang for your buck exercise that I can think of. I learned it from the Jerusalem Studio School when I studied at their art residency 8 years back now. Gosh, it's been so long. And I have done hundreds of these at this point. Each time I do a transcription, I learn more about my art and more about the way I'm seeing and more about my faults and what can be improved than any other exercise I have on this list. It is truly remarkable the amount you're going to learn and the amount you improve after doing one and then another and then doing... With every repetition, you learn so much more. What a transcription is essentially is a copy of a master painting. Now, you're not going to do an exact copy. You're going to do a very abbreviated. You want to get the feeling of a painting without any of the fine details. Here's how to do it. What you'll need is your oil painting setup. Now, if you do acrylic painting, you can still do a transcription, but it's nice to have something with a little bit more open time so you can really get into the color mixing. You're going to need your oil painting setup. Now, if you work in a lot of candy colors and things like that for your typical work, I would suggest going back into your ochres, go find your ultramarine blue, and go back into those colors because it'll help you, it'll give you the pigments that these old masters were using. After you get your palette, you're going to need a 1-inch wide brush, right? The flat top, size 10 plus, something that's large. Don't be tempted to use a smaller brush for this. Make sure it's a big 1-inch or bigger brush, okay? The next thing you need is oil painting paper or some canvas, and you need some images. These images should be paintings that have been completed at least 100 years ago. I'm thinking old masters from Europe, from wherever, paintings that have been just recognized as masterworks. Some artists that I really like are Corot, I like Giotto, Velázquez, Sargent, and I would say the most modern you should do is Mary Cassatt, and she's just under 100 years ago. So don't go too contemporary. Stick to the old masters. Okay, so you've picked out some images. Pick one for your first one. It can be whatever. If you're listening to the podcast on my website, you will see a picture of a Corot painting, and this is one of the first ones I ever did. You're going to take your canvas, and you're going to draw out a postcard-sized frame to paint within. So a postcard is 4 by 6 inches, but you're going to draw a frame that is the same aspect ratio of the painting. So if it's a 2:3 ratio for the painting, you're going to make a 2:3 rectangle in your sketchbook or on your canvas or whatever that is the same size. That way you're not getting messed up because the canvas quote unquote sizes are different. Then using a paintbrush that is size 10 or bigger, you're going to create a copy of the master painting in this tiny size. So basically what you're doing is you're making a tiny painting with a large brush. What's really important here is that you don't sketch out the painting beforehand. You're not going to get your pencil out, and if you must make some marks for like measuring and stuff like that, you're going to do it right with the painting. Go straight into painting work. The idea is not to make an exact replica, but to create an image in miniature. Your goals with a transcription is to get the feeling of a painting, to get the composition right, and get the colors really exact while giving up any details. You're not going to be painting leaves on a tree, you're going to be painting full foliage motifs. I want you to spend 30 minutes to an hour on this. You're not going to go over because, again, you're not turning this little painting into a project. This is absolutely an exercise. That said, make sure the painting is done by the time the hour is up. Like, set a timer if you need to. That means the whole canvas that you've drawn out, the small 4x6 inch-ish canvas, should be completely covered with paint, right? You should be able to see the whole image at that time. So an hour goes up, you're going to stop. At this point, this is where reflection happens. When you look at the transcription you made, and then you look at the image that you've pulled up either like on your phone or your computer, or you've printed it out, see what the similarities are, see what the difference is. Did you get the shape of the mountains correct? Did you get the sky color correct? Did you get the motion of the pathway correct? Did you get the temperature of the painting correct? Are your colors in tune with what is true for the master painting? Think of questions like this and analyze, and then take notes. And then the next time you do this transcription exercise, move forward with those thoughts. I really recommend, and this sounds crazy, remember how I said these are like really quick ways to improve your painting skills? When I think of quickness in a painting career can be a lifetime. So for this exercise to work, I would recommend doing 100 of these. One a day for 100 days. You could probably do it in a summer if you really were determined and you wanted a summer-long project. If you spent 30 minutes painting every single day for a whole summer, doing a transcription, not original work, but copies of masterworks, you are going to improve tenfold. Even if you are self-taught, even if you have no one critiquing you and looking at what you've been making, you're going to learn about color theory. You're going to learn about how the masters were making their paintings, how they were using darks, how they were using high keys and low keys, how they were dealing with temperature and shadows and everything. And you're going to learn very fast. You're also going to learn a lot of brush technique. You're going to learn a lot of precision, how to carve out a mountain, how to create a river that feels like it's drifting off into the distance. Like, it's really going to work, but you have to stick to it. So I really recommend doing one a day for 100 days, doing 100 of these. In a little over 3 months, your technique, your eye, and your satisfaction for what is good will transform. By doing transcriptions, you're learning how other artists work, how they see, and what made them great. By doing them very small, you gain many other benefits also. One summer, I did 100 of these, and after, my abstract work improved by leaps. You will gain improvement in line, in composition, in color control, in brush control, how you understand light, and how to develop a daily creating practice. It's superb. Here are some tips for doing transcriptions. When you begin, you will feel satisfied with what you make. If you feel this way, be alarmed. This should be like a warning bell. If you're looking at your transcription and you're like, hey, that's pretty good, it's probably not. It's easy to get into a confidence in your mind when you're doing a transcription. If you find yourself there, get really, really critical with yourself about what is happening in the transcription. Like, really, really compare. Are the colors correct? Is the line weights correct? Is everything actually accurate to what the master painting is without getting every little window and every little leaf, etc. Another tip I have is do not go back to a previous transcription. As in, 1, don't go back to one that you started the day before, and 2, don't go back to the same image. Continue on doing a new image every single time. This will keep things fresh and get you painting quicker. Another tip is, again, do not sketch out the painting before starting. If you must make marks, do it with paint. This is going to keep you away from getting into the nitty-gritty of drawing and get you more quickly into the colors and more quickly into making decisive strokes with your brush. Now, say you want to do this exercise for 100 days, and this is really cool, but you have like travel plans. I would highly recommend that you try doing this exercise with gouache. Gouache is a portable medium, and I find that you can get a lot of excellent success with gouache. It'll help you get even more into an alla prima sort of mindset, because the layering can get a little bit muddy if you're not careful, and it's a little bit more forgiving than oil paint. It can be very fun, so try it out. Plus, if you're a gouache or watercolor artist in itself, this can be just superb. Now, let's say you've done 7 transcriptions. I would say every week or so, you should do a group critique of the 7 that you've made. Doing so, you'll see comparisons and you'll see similarities within the painting, within the compositions, within your motifs that you've chosen also. Like the first time I did transcriptions, I was just using raw ultramarine blue in my paintings. Like I wasn't mixing it with anything. And I was like, oh, this actually looks terrible. What I thought was an accurate color, it was not accurate at all. And I need to be mixing my colors more. So you're going to learn things and you're going to see patterns when you compare them together. Don't be satisfied with the first color you mix. Mixing color is going to be the most important part of a transcription, getting the color right and placing it correctly. I mean, that's what painting's about, isn't it? But if you are mixing your color and you're like, this seems close enough, don't be satisfied with close enough. Like really get in there, make the colors muddy, mess up a bunch, and get the paint on the canvas. Again, I'm going to stress this. Try and get the whole painting finished by the time the hours is up. Like really push yourself to get the whole canvas. And I'm saying the whole canvas like it's huge, but it's a 4x6 inch sort of space, approximately, depending on the painting you choose. But try to get the whole thing down so it's completely finished when the hour is done. If you need to set like 15-minute timers to help you stay steady and carry on, then do that. You're going to be tempted at some point to start using a smaller brush. Do not do it. Stay to the big brush. You have the flat side, 1 inch, and then the edges, which is, an 1/8 of an inch usually. Keep to those and do your best to learn how to wield this brush. Using a bigger brush than the canvas, like using a brush that's almost a quarter size of the canvas, is intimidating, and it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be challenging and difficult and to get you to be very decisive. After doing about 100 of these, you can start to allow yourself to work with more contemporary images. If you're like, okay, I've done 100, 150, whatever, of old masters, and now I want to start working with pictures that maybe are more in my field of creation, like I want to do more Bridget Riley's and things like that. You can do that now after you've done a bunch of the old masters, but you do need to go way back in time and work your way forward. Otherwise, you're going to start learning bad habits early instead of good habits. It works out. Trust me on this. Okay. Exercise number 2, the black mirror. All you need for this is a cell phone or a digital screen, plus black pens or monochrome paint, and a sketchbook or some sort of painting surface. This is how to do it. The black mirror is just a phone screen turned off. You can also use your computer monitor. You can use any sort of digital screen that's kind of shiny. And it is going to be your new way of seeing the world. You turn off your screen and you look through it. You will notice that the reflection is a mirror that takes away most color. It is a profound tool for creating and a way of looking at your painting and your finished work when it is not working. When you're looking at something you've made and you're just like, something feels off, if you look through it using your black mirror, it can be really transformative and it can point you very quickly to what is wrong. But the exercise of the black mirror is a little bit different. Mark out a rectangle that is the ratio of your screen on your drawing or painting surface. Aim your screen so that you are looking at a window or a landscape or a simplified interior screen. I would avoid a self-portrait here, at least at first. Make a black and white drawing or painting of what you see through the black mirror. This will take you about 15 to 30 minutes. And I would say do it once a day for a week, or whenever you don't want to make art or you don't know what to make, or as a warm-up. It's very good as a warm-up. If you're going to use markers, I would say get 3 markers. Get a black, a light gray, and a dark gray. Be very precise in your movements when you're drawing and fill up the space of the frame that you've drawn out very quickly. You want to illustrate quickly because you're training your brain to see the different value tones very quickly. I would highly discourage you use this exercise with pencils because that encourages erasing. You want to be doing this exercise with very permanent marks. If you use paint, I would say pre-mix about a 5 to 7 step grayscale with white and black at the ends. And I like using warm white. And if you're going to use this way, make sure you're filling up the whole canvas, right? You're not letting the canvas white peek through, you're painting it. The quicker you do this study, the better it's going to train your eye. So if you can do this in 15 minutes, that's going to be really excellent. And if you do like 5 in a row, that's even better. The black mirror can be used to help you problem solve with your painting, like I said at the beginning here. But what the black mirror really does is it reduces the visual information of your what you're looking at, right? It's a way to reduce the nonsense and show you the truth, and it's quite good. And I really like it. Whenever I do a black mirror study, it takes away the majority of color, and I'm able to see what's light and what is a different tone, like is it high key, is it low key, and what it's doing to the visual field I'm creating in my work. Another fun thing you can do with a black mirror is sometimes I take it to art museums. Sometimes I just look through the world through it, right? You take your phone out, the screen's off, and you just look at paintings through the mirror. And it's kind of a fun trick, and it's kind of a revelation, and you'll see things that it's in the reverse, in the filtered light here that is really powerful to how you're going to create. This next exercise is something that I've been doing since I was 8 years old, and I still love it. And there's a point with this exercise that if you do it casually and you do it without trying, it's going to be silly and fun. But if you do it in a very focused way, it will push your limits, and it will push you into a sensitivity that the other exercises don't really have. So this is the blind contour. What you'll need is a pen and paper, a sketchbook, whatever you need. And you also need an object of some sort. This can be a person, it can be a plant. I'm a fan of trees with this, and this is how to do it. Using a pen in your sketchbook, you're going to draw whatever it is that you've chosen in front of you. A person, a tree, a teacup, whatever. Do not look at your page as you're drawing, and do not pick up the pen as you draw. This drawing is one line. It is contour drawing. It is just one single line to make up the image. You're going to make one continuous line as you draw out the shapes and the lines of whatever you're illustrating. The trick to making this actually a teachable moment is going as slow as you can, letting your eye translate every curve and shape and mimic that with your hand as your eye is seeing it. You're going to learn about perspective, as in what you're seeing versus what your hand is moving. You're going to learn fine motor control. You're going to learn getting things exactly as you see them versus how you're imagining things on paper. This should take you 5 minutes or so, sometimes 15 if you're going really slow, which I encourage that you try. And when you're done with an image, look down at your drawing and compare it is what you're doing with reality. I would repeat this as many times in a row till your hand-eye coordination starts to line up. Draw the same tree 4 times, doing it 5, 10, 15. You can even go like a 20-minute blind contour drawing, which takes a long time, and you'll need a timer for this, but it will give you the sensitivity of what's happening, what you're seeing, and how you can control your hand and the pen. It's very fun. They can be very silly if you're going too loose and too fast with this, as in, like, sometimes I call them alien drawings when I'm working with kids, and I'm like, we're going to do an alien drawing, right? And we do a blind contour, and they draw the person's face, and, you know, the eyes are on the left side of the page, and the lips are up top where the hairline should be, and it's very silly. But if you go slow enough, if you take the care you have with your pen and your eye, and you're looking and you're being very, very careful, you are going to teach yourself a sensitivity to your mark making that cannot be found in very many other places. So give blind contour drawing a go. I think you'll like it. It's also one of my favorite warm-ups to do. Whenever I'm like, okay, it's time to get painting and I need some precision, I will warm up with a blind contour drawing, and it's great. Number 4 is called 3 spots. This is an exercise I don't see very often online, so it's kind of unusual, but I think it's one of the more unique exercises you can do, and one that maybe causes me the most frustration, but like in a good way. Like I'm learning, you know? So this exercise is about mixing color. The idea is to take a picture of an old master work, kind of like the ones you did for your transcriptions, and mix 3 colors that adequately represent the image. So what you're going to need is your oil painting palette, a reference photo or 2, your palette knife, a brush of any size for this, and a sketchbook or your canvas. On your palette, you're going to pour a quarter size of paint of every color that you like to use. Very quickly, my palette I like to use for this is cadmium yellow, yellow ochre, burnt umber, cadmium red, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, phthalo blue or green, sap green, ivory black, and warm white. You can add in any colors that you have in your regular rotation here, but you want to have all your color poured out so you have lots to choose from. So then you're going to pull out your very first reference photo. Your challenge is to mix 3 colors that really capture the essence of the image. If you're on the blog, I have a picture of the girl with the pearl earring. You can probably imagine it in your head right now. She is a white woman and she's got this blue headdress with a yellow tail on it, a pearl silver earring, a white collar, and a brown overcoat, vest, dress, something, I can't tell, with a black background. It's very striking, right? What you're going to do is you're going to pick 3 colors that represent this. So when I look at her, the girl with the pearl earring, I see the blue head wrap that is like the most prominent. So I pick a lighter tone for that. And then I see her overcoat or dress. I'm not really sure what it is. And I'm like, that's a nice golden brown color. So I'm choosing that. And then her skin tone really shines out here for me. So I pick the skin tone that is closer towards her forehead. And what you're going to do is you're going to make those 3 colors. You're just trying to get the colors correct, picking the 3 that really represent what this image is all about. And you put 3 dots of those colors, 1 dot of each, all next to each other in a little triangle of color. You're not going to mix them, you're just going to put them next to each other. And you're going to do that until you get the 3 colors really correct. This is a color mixing exercise. You're not trying to make the portrait, you're just trying to get the color and the feeling of the portrait in those 3 colors. What you're going to learn here and what you're going to run into is that when you make one color and you put it down on your canvas or your sketchbook, whatever you're using for the exercise, and then you make your second color, the second color really affects what the first color looks like. When you put it next to the first color, you're going to be like, oh, now the first color isn't correct anymore. You can see where this is going to get frustrated. And then once you get the first 2 correct and you're like, okay, I've nailed the first 2 colors. Now I need to make the third color. And for me, that was this nice warm brown tone that was very complicated. And I mixed it and I put it down next to my first 2 and I was like, oh, that's not correct anymore. The first color isn't correct. Her skin tone isn't correct. So then I had to remix the skin tone. And you go over and over and over again until you get the 3 tones until they are perfectly set. And you're like, these are the 3 colors. When I put these 3 dots together, it becomes the girl with the pearl earring. And then it's kind of magic. And you're like, wow, it took me many iterations to get here, but we got there in the end. Then you're going to repeat this with your next image. I like to do these practice of the 3 dots, like 3 or 4 images in a row, sometimes even 5 at a time. And I would keep doing this exercise set until you can create these colors very quickly. Like when I first was learning this, I think it took me a month of doing this almost every day to be able to be like, okay, this is what this color is, and this is what this color is, and this is how you mix it, and this is how you mix it using the pigment tones that I own, right? And it's quite fun, and it's challenging, and it's interesting, and I don't know, I really love it. I would say tips for this is be warned of what color your background is if you are painting on a canvas. So, for example, the girl with the pearl earring has a very dark background, and so I would use a very dark background to put your dots on. That way the color relationship is similar. Or a grayscale piece of paper can be very helpful. If you've only got white, just use white. I kind of think of this as like speed dating, but for paint. So by taking the 3 essential colors of the image, you really choose and you learn how to mix them exactly and very quickly. You'll paint faster and more accurately in the future with your own original work. You also learn a lot about color relationships and how they seem to change when they're next to each other. So some tips are mix the color until you get it right. That's the main tip. That is essentially what the exercise is. Do it over and over and over again until it's really perfect. Don't be satisfied with almost. Spend more time mixing the paint than you think. Sometimes when I'm doing this, I'm mixing color for 5, 10, or 15 minutes, and then, you put the dot down, and that's the fastest part. If you are having trouble choosing which 3 colors to pick for a picture, you should use some digital tools. I don't know if you've ever gone to your Instagram stories and used the drawing tool, but one thing I really like to do is to upload a picture to my story, and then I get the drawing tool out, and it has the eyedropper tool, so you can pick a specific color. And then I'll just color a little dot next to the picture of what that color looks like. And that helps me pick out the colors. That helps me see, okay, I'm aiming for those 3 colors. In my blog, I have a picture of an example for you that I used with the girl of the pearl earring. So you can see what I'm doing here. One thing I hear a lot when I ask people to do this exercise is that it's wasting paint. And to that I say, if you are learning, that is the best possible use of the paint. You're not wasting paint. You are doing an exercise that is making you more skilled in the future. And if you need to use that paint in some other way besides mixing it and learning, then put it on a canvas and make something silly at the end of this exercise. But until then, I don't think it's wasting paint. I think it's making it into its optimal form. It's learning. It's good. Number 5, squint. Things you're going to need for this: your eyes. And just that. So this is how this exercise works. It's not necessarily a painting exercise, but it is a seeing exercise. So what you're going to do is you're going to go outside and look at a landscape of some sort. You're going to squint your eyes until most visual information is out of your vision, basically nearly closed. Some people might just be able to take off their glasses for this, but you should be squinting so much that you couldn't define a leaf off of a tree. When you do this, you're going to start noticing that the big shapes are going to solidify and simplify. Shadows from a tree will start to emerge. The light sources will start to congeal. Is that too weird of a word to say? But they do. They simplify and they kind of come together until you can see the picture of the landscape in its most basic form. When you do this, I want you to start to notice what happens with the big shapes. So let's say you're looking at a tree and it's got a bright side and a dark side because the sun's out, right? When you squint your eyes, you're going to start to notice that, oh, this one big branch shape starts to really come forward, and the shadows are really defined in this one weird squiggle kind of way. And the lighting source of the day, the temperature is actually quite hot, and the color is very yellow. Whereas before, when you had your eyes wide open, it was a myriad of colors. You could see every leaf, every pine cone, every shape. Things become more complicated. When you squint, you simplify. When you squint, you get to see the world as a painting versus as a human. When you squint, you will look at one thing and it'll change when you look at the thing right next to it. This is the most powerful part of this example here, is that when you squint, you get to see what the color relationships are truly doing. You know how when you have your phone camera out and you tap on the screen and it'll focus in on one area and the colors of the image kind of change, but when you tap on another area, they're completely different and sometimes even overexposed? This is what we're training our eye to do, to really define and see easily. Let's try this exercise. Squint your eyes and let's say look at the roof of a building, if you've got one near you. Look at the roof and look at it long enough that you really notice the temperature, you notice the color of the shingles, you notice the skyline behind it. Really stare at the roof itself, though. Pinpoint your eye onto like a single shingle or a single like plane of the roof. Then once you looked at it for maybe a minute or so, change your gaze to something that is quite close by. Perhaps it's a sky or a tree or a fence line. When you change your focus from the rooftop to, say, the fence post, you'll notice that the colors of everything are quite different. So I'm squinting and I'm looking at my window now. And I'm looking at my fence line and it's quite bright in the sunlight. It's a sunny day here in Seattle for once. And the blue of the sky is very pale. But when I change my vision, and I'm squinting still, to the sky is now bright blue. And the fence line looks a little bit darker. A lot of it darker, actually, because I'm focusing so much on the sky tones. You're going to learn about your peripheral vision here. You're going to learn about making wrinkles on your face in the name of art. And you're going to learn about what changes when you focus on different things. If you're having a hard time understanding what I'm talking about here, I'm going to have you pull out your phone. And if you're watching a video form of this, you're going to see some images. Cameras do this exercise extremely well. We have to train our eyes to see this, though. Okay, so on my phone here, I have two photos of essentially the same thing. It is a building with some skies and some trees. On my first photo here, which I haven't done any color correction on, the focus is on the house. I've got the house and the shingles and the roof. The color of it is very green. It's kind of bluish in tone. And the fence line is really dark. The sky is quite bright. And the trees are they're warm, but kind of cooler in nature. When I change my focus to the fence, everything changes, right? So when I tap on the fence on my phone and the focus goes to the fence lightens up quite a bit. And everything above it, above the fence line that I was seeing, the house and the sky and the trees, they also brighten up quite a bit. They've gotten a lot hotter in temperature, very warm. The greens are now yellows. The house color is no longer blue. It's definitely green now. And the sky has gotten paler. When you do the squinting exercise and you start to notice the differences between what you're looking at and what's next to it, you're going to change how you think about your own paint. You're going to change about how you're considering the color relationships between a blue and a purple, and the blue and the sunlight, and the sky, and whatever it is you're making. The changes will start to show up, and you'll start thinking about color a little bit differently. Here's another example. I'm in my studio right now, and in my studio I have a concrete floor that's gray, and I've got some skylights. They're beautiful. And right now the sun is shining really brightly. In the video form here, you'll see an image of my cabinet and my door and the floor, and it's kind of pale, right? Everything is kind of pale, and I'm really focusing on the cabinet here. When I squint my eyes at this cabinet, it's totally black, but when I look at it, I'm actually seeing the reflection. I'm seeing quite a lot of light, and the sunlight that's coming through is very bright. It's so bright, it's nearly white and has lost a lot of the detail. But when I change my focus to look at just the sunlight, and I stare at the shadows that are coming through, and I can look at the bright whites, everything around it gets so much darker, goes way, way further to low key. The details of the reflection on my cabinet start to disappear, the details on the floor disappear, and I'm only looking at the bright white. It's funny how just changing your focus from a cabinet to the sunlight, which in this image is like 5 inches of difference, totally changes every other color. And when you think about this as a painting, you're thinking about, okay, maybe I'm doing a still life. Where your focus is on the still life is going to change everything about what the colors around it look like. And that's important for making something realistic, and that's important for making something feel convincing. And it's the same thing in abstraction. Wherever your focus is on whatever color that you're putting down, the color next to it really matters. You can train your eyes to do this, and you can train yourself to notice when this is happening. And the noticing is the most important part, because your eyes will do this on its own. Look for a spot of intense darkness, and then move your eye to a spot of intense light, and you'll notice the colors changing in your perception. It's tricky, and it's wild. Sometimes I can even feel the muscles in my eyes moving, and maybe that's weird. But it's true, and I feel that way. So with these 5 exercises, if you do them over and over again, like don't do the squinting when you're driving because that's dangerous, but like enough where it becomes kind of fun, like a game. Like what color am I seeing? And what color is right next to what I was just looking at? You're going to improve your painting skills. You're going to improve them a lot. Really quick, let's go through it again. We have the transcription, making a master copy really tiny. We have the black mirror, the blind contour, the 3 spots, and squinting. These 5 exercises have made up my best painting habits, and I hope you find them useful. If you need help with any of them, if you're like, oh, I'm unclear about one thing, or I tried a transcription and I'm not sure if it's working, please send me a message because I will respond and I will look at them, and I love helping people learn and improve their own craft. So send me a message and I'll get back to you at some point, yeah? It'll be fun. If you've liked this episode of Brushwork Podcast, will you leave a comment or a 5-star review or a thumbs up or subscribe to the channel, whatever the mechanic is for wherever you're watching. I would really appreciate it. You're the best, and I hope you have a great day. Make good choices, everyone. Goodbye!